Hello everyone, my name is Sudabe and today I'm going to create an illustration in Procreate app. First up, let's import the sketch that I made before and lock it to do the coloring part on top of it. As I draw, I'll show you step by step how to create each element of the illustration so that you can follow along and draw with me. In my illustrations, there are different layers of objects, some close to me and some are at behind. After importing the sketch, I start with the closest object and begin with a mug. I'll first color the shapes on the mug and then the mug itself. I usually search on Pinterest to get inspiration for my drawings. After gathering ideas, I create some rough sketches. Then, I make a clean sketch in Procreate because it's easier for me to color when I have a neat and clean map layer. Otherwise, if I need to make changes to the sketch while coloring, it can become difficult and confusing for me. And if you are interested in how I make these sketches, just comment below and I will make a video on how I draw the sketches of my illustration and how I get inspired. When it comes to my digital illustrations, I like to keep things simple with the Studio Pen brush and the dry ink brush, which are default brushes that comes with the app. Sure, there are tons of fancy brushes out there that you can buy, but for me, these default brushes are enough. Plus, let's be real, the most important thing when it comes to creating great art is your own creativity and skill. Fancy brushes are not magical. Actually, it's like investing in cool art supplies. It's hard to resist all the fun brushes and tools out there, but at the end of the day, I think it's important to focus on using what you have and sharpen your skills as an artist. After I colored the pattern on top of the mug, I start to add some more details to these flowers to make them a bit nicer, and then I start illustrating the mug itself. It's a really easy process. Just pick a nice color and make a shape and then fill it with that color. Overall, Procreate is an easy tool to use. What you need to do to have a nice illustration is to pick the right color palette and match the colors together in the right way. For example, here I picked dark blue with this neutral pinkish tone. They are technically not complementary colors, but I think they work well together. And I should mention that before coloring my illustrations, I make some simple coloring tests here and there to see which color works best in my artwork. I will show you in my next videos how I pick the colors for my illustrations. But also, I have videos about color theories that you can watch to get general knowledge. And like everything else, after practicing, you will be able to pick the right colors. To make it more realistic and a proper mug shape, I draw a handle for the mug. And I should mention, for those of you who are not familiar with Procreate, if you have a problem drawing perfect lines, especially for ovals, hold it for a second and the app will make a perfect oval for you. And if you want it to be a circle, tap your other finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle. But here I just need an oval. After completing the mug, I make a new layer to move on to the next object, which is the coffee pot. I start by coloring the shape of the pot and then I'll add the details. Same as the mug, begin with the outline of the shape and then fill it with a color. For this object, I chose the dark blue color, which matches the mug patterns and has a good contrast with the mug color. And then I add a new layer to make some patterns on the coffee container. One of the most important elements of a nice illustration is to insert some texture and details into it, and it will bond the whole design together. For example, adding texture to people's clothes or objects, or even drawing a plant with more details. Here, as you see, I drew simple parallel lines just to make a simple pattern on the pot. Adding details is something fun to do. Some people like their illustrations to be simple with flat colors, which works pretty well. But here I intentionally add these patterns to avoid having flat color spots here and there, so it's more appealing for me. And you can always change your mind if you did not like that, or test different patterns in different layers to see which one works best in your artwork. But here I think this pattern works well for me. After making this pattern, I make the pot lid. I make some adjustment in color by making darker shades to imply the dimension of the lid's different parts. With a simple step like this, you can enhance your illustrations. And you can add the lid just by simple forms of ovals and edit the forms by the brush and make it a perfect lid. Finally, it's time to draw the cake. To make it a bit more realistic, I pick the light brown tones for the cake part, and I will add some dots here and there to have a cake texture. Here also you can make a dimension just by changing the color shades, as you see, and imply the feeling of the cake to the viewers. And for the icing part, I use the red color because it's a strawberry cake decoration, so why not use the red? And to be honest, this color works well with the other tones around. So when you want to pick a color, you should be aware of the other colors surrounding that to have a perfect match between colors together. When I start the coloring part, I usually start from the back to front. This way, I have a good view of how colors work on top of each other. But here, in this illustration, I start with the closest object, which was the mug, and then coloring the objects behind that. And I think it works better if you have the colors in mind. So having a color reference will be really helpful. I usually start by coloring every part of the illustration to have a set of simple colored objects, and then I add details to the whole design. This way, I can decide where to add shades and how to make them more appealing. And then to bring everything together, I add some details like these tiny plants here and there, just to decorate my illustration. Okay, after tiny branches, it's time for the shadow underneath all objects and also the cake plates. And here also, by just simply make some ovals, you can make a big shadow and two ovals for the plates, which is not that hard. And then after that, I make a shape for the background to make the composition complete. And then also adding some details here and there. I use different layers for each object part. It makes it so much easier if you want to change something or add details in the future, or even for shading the parts. Then it's time for adding shadows. You can select a darker tone or just one neutral tone and make it overlay. So there are two ways to add shades. But here I chose the darker tone. I mask the layers by using a different brush, which is dry ink brush. I add shadows here and there. This way I can make the object more realistic, and also it adds a dimension to the whole illustration. And this is a good technique to fix the coloring issue in your illustrations. This way you can make more contrast between objects' color. So if you haven't chose a proper color that sits next to another color, by adding more shadows, you can make one darker, so the contrast will be fixed. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up if you like this video and comment below if you have any question or any suggestions. Thank you. Bye.